Welcome, everybody, to our very first live episode. We are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. This is super exciting. First off, I want to just let everyone know that this is a very tough time, and we all know that, we see that, we feel that, and I want to let you know that the show is here for you. If you need anything, always reach out. We're gonna get a lot more content out here. I know sports aren't on, and it sucks, but we're doing everything we can to get all of the content out as fast and as ample as possible. And we wanted to kick things off kind of with this live event and get some information out to people, get sports kind of back into our hearts. And, before we jump right into it, there was a couple things I wanted to cover. First off, just shout out to anyone working in the medical field. We appreciate you. It's cliche to say you're in the front lines, but you truly are. You essential employees out there, even the people that are, working at department stores that aren't closed down, dealing with people that might not think this is a serious thing, but the fact of the matter is, this is very serious. So I appreciate everyone that's out there doing stuff for us and making us a better country. And we are going to dive right into it. So before the mock draft, we did a giveaway. So we put out a few posts, had you guys interact, get our name out there, get you guys to kind of put your name in a hat, and we were going to draw some winners. And these winners are going to win three $50 gift cards to a grocery store. And basically, the reason for this is the show wanted to share some love. We understand that not everyone has everything right now, and we are trying to do everything we can to help as many people as we can. And we figured by doing this, we can, share some love, spread some love, and we are going to announce those winners now. I wish I had a drum roll effect, but unfortunately I don't. So we did 3 drawings. So obviously we did 3 posts. All 3 were through Facebook, Instagram, and we are doing 2 from the Facebook, Instagram posts, and then the third post was through a page called Gleam. And Gleam is a website that basically tracks your social media pages, so you can go on there and get points for certain things that you do. So we had, view our YouTube channel for 5 points to give you some extra entries, and so on and so forth. So the first 2 drawings are coming from the Facebook and Instagram pages, and those winners are Jordan Franco and Fernando Lopez. So congratulations to you guys. The show will reach out to you here after the episode, and we'll get your gift cards sent over to you guys. And then the third winner came from the Gleam website, and our winner was entrant number 119, and that was Mr. Michael Hurt. So congratulations to you as well. We'll get contacted to you through Twitter and get your gift card sent out as well. Really impressed, guys. I mean, we really wanted to just do something small. We weren't expecting a big a big gathering of people to join this, but we ended up having over 200, and it was about 240 do the Gleam website, 240 entries, just over that, and we had about 70 entries on the Facebook and Instagram. So great job. We had over 300 people enter into this contest, and we were lucky enough to get 3 winners. So congratulations to you guys, and we're going to dive right into this mock draft. I can't again tell you guys how exciting this is. We've been spending probably about a week or 2 putting this mock draft together. I apologize for how crummy my my PowerPoint skills are, but we put together a little something for you guys to kind of break down the draft, because it is happening. So for those of you that aren't aware of the current sports situation, especially football, the draft is happening. They did cancel the live event of the draft. Everything's going to be happening digitally. We are not quite sure exactly how that's going to happen. There's been talks of doing like a virtual reality. There's talks of just basically having the top 30-ish picks be available via FaceTime or Zoom, which is popular now, and getting them to join in on these calls when they're drafted, doing live interviews, so on and so forth. As far as the teams go, they are being told to meet at a location that is not the team facility. So they're basically going to the head coach, GM, or owner's house and doing this draft. They are basically given the technology to communicate the trades, communicate the picks with the NFL, and it's definitely going to be something different. Again, we're not quite sure the entire layout of it, how it's going to happen. All we know is it's happening, which is super exciting. The NFL is obviously doing this because, one, they know that they can do it safely, and two, they're doing it because they know that what we need right now is sports. I know looking at some of the ratings, WrestleMania was up in ratings. People that don't watch wrestling but are watching it now because there's no sports on. So the NFL is trying to get that to us, give us our sports fix. So they're going to do some sort of digital platform and they're going to get it out to us, and it's probably going to be on every single major network, and they're going to have all the random guys doing the broadcasting, probably remotely, but we're going to get the draft. So it's 3 weeks away. What are our teams thinking? What players going where? What do these teams need? Well, free agency did happen. So even though not everyone signed, because you have to complete a physical to finish your final closing of the deal, if you will. And right now people can't get those physicals done with everything going on. So most of the contracts are in limbo. We've actually seen a couple that were quote unquote signed deals, and now they're not signed anymore. And they're back to either being free agents or they've already re-signed with a different team. Michael Brockers was one. Eli Apple was another, signing deals with the team, and then the team couldn't come to an agreement. Physical wasn't completed. Had a change of heart, pull out, change teams, name of the game. So being that free agency actually happened, some teams actually have made moves, which is going to change their stance in the draft. What does that stance look like? Well, we're going to go down this draft pick by pick for the first round. We're going to talk about what people have added, or what teams have added, what they've lost, and where they're going with it. So without further ado, the first team on the clock is the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously finishing the season 2-14, the Bengals have the first pick in the draft. Now, there are rumors that the Bengals might look into trading, but everyone is saying that the Bengals are 100% in on this first pick. They know exactly who they want, and they're rolling with it. So, their key additions, they've added a lot of DBs. Corners, safeties, they've added 3 of them, and they've added a defensive tackle. But what they've lost a lot. Obviously, Tyler Eifert has been injury-riddled his entire life, but they do lose a tight end threat. They lose a great lineman in Cordy Glenn. Some other names that they lost. Denard is a big-time defensive back for them, and Webb was another good corner that they lost. And they kind of filled those gaps with Mackenzie Alexander and Trey Waynes, and obviously bringing in Von Bell is another good fit for them. So what did the Bengals need? Well, let's look at last year. They're worst in offensive production. They were the worst in the league in QBR. They were the worst in the league in passing yards. So they obviously need a quarterback. And usually teams that are here in the first 5 picks need a quarterback, unless they have just drafted someone the year prior and they're working through that. So with the Bengals, their pick is in, and I believe very strongly the Bengals will not be trading this pick, and they will be going with quarterback Joe Burrow out of LSU. What you see on the tape for Joe Burrow, he is the most NFL-ready quarterback in this draft class. He's coming off a national championship. He played in the SEC, which is basically the D-League for the NFL. He plays top-tier talent, NFL talent every single day, and he's ready. The Bengals are going to get an absolute stud. Now, whether he starts right off the bat, we don't know. They still have Andy Dalton on contract. Do they trade Dalton? Do they keep Burrow? Who knows? But what we do know is the Bengals brought back A.J. Green. They still have some weapons with Boyd. And now, bringing in a young quarterback, they can kind of build around it. Joe Mixon is still a good running back, just underutilized. Let's see where they go from here. So, Bengals number 1 pick, Joe Burrow. Next on the clock, we have the Washington Redskins. Finished 3-13 on the season. You can see the Redskins have done a lot of moves. A lot of adding, a lot of subtracting. Now, they have a lot of needs still. A lot of these additions were, I wouldn't say role players, but positional players that fit the scheme, not star players. This second pick in the draft is going to need to be a star, someone that's going to take over either the offense or the defense. They bring in Coach Ron Rivera, who's very good with players, defensive-minded coach. So, having said that, the Redskins pick is in, and they're going with defensive end Chase Young from Ohio State. Chase Young is by far the best talent in this draft. Obviously, quarterback's always going to outweigh every other position, but athletically and talent-wise, Chase Young is by far the best athlete/NFL player in this draft. He is the most ready. And if you look at what the Redskins need, number 1 on that board is defensive end. And Chase Young not only fills that, but gives them that star player feel, and let's see if it transitions to the NFL. Coming in the third pick, we have the Detroit Lions, 3-13-1. Now, another team that's doing a lot of adding and a lot of subtracting. Their biggest hit was losing Darius Slay, trading him to the Eagles. Now, obviously, they weren't going to come to a long-term agreement with Slay. Slay was not happy in Detroit. There's a falling out in the locker room with him. It was best to get him out. But talent-wise, that's a huge hit. A huge hit. So, being that he's gone, that means cornerback's their number 1 need. Now, they've added some DBs in free agency, but again, right now with everything that's going on, Desmond Trufant was probably their best signing in the corner position. But even Trufant's coming off of kind of a weak season. They need someone to take this defense over. And Matt Patricia, being a defensive-minded coach, that's what they're going to do. So the pick is in, and with the third pick of the draft, I believe the Detroit Lions are going with Jeff Okudah, the defensive back out of Ohio State. Okudah is probably the next best talent in this draft. Not surprising that they're both coming from Ohio State. Ohio State's defense was stacked, and they played a professional-style defense. They hit you hard. They move sideline to sideline. Okudah is going to be a huge addition to the Lions. Hopefully, he can be such a great addition that you don't even need to worry about Slay leaving. Now, is that the only need that they need to fill? Absolutely not. But Okudah is a good start to their draft class. With the next pick, number 4 in the draft, we have the New York Giants finishing 4-12-1. You can see the Giants did a lot of adding. Most of their subtracting was not retirement, but just old age. The team moving on from players that aren't necessarily performing at their top talent. You can see a lot of them aren't even signed with new teams. And they bring in a lot of talent that can really fix a lot of their miscues. I mean, bringing in a guy like Dion Lewis, that's going to really help Saquon Barkley in the run game. Bringing in a guy like Colt McCoy, who's going to be a great veteran leader right behind Daniel Jones. So they're bringing in a lot of veteran guys that can really help this young team out, because that's what they are. They're young. So we talked at the very beginning of this that these teams in the top 5 are going to want quarterbacks. Well, so far we've only had one quarterback go. And why is that? Well, that's because the 3 teams that have already drafted are either, one, relying on a veteran, or they just drafted a quarterback. And in this case, the Giants just drafted Daniel Jones last year. They're going to give him a chance. So what do they need most? Well, the Giants pick is in. And with that pick, they're going to take Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. Now, Simmons is a utility knife. This guy can play everything. Corner, safety, linebacker. He can even play defensive end in some schemes. Now, if you look at the Giants' needs, they definitely needed offensive tackle. And they definitely need interior linemen. And why wouldn't you draft that for a quarterback that you just drafted last year? Well, Isaiah Simmons is that good. You'll hear a lot of teams talk about, their talent board. Yes, need versus talent. Here's our needs, but this guy's talent outweighs what we need. If you look down to their number 2 need is linebacker. Well, Simmons fits that bill. If you look down at number 3, defensive end, Simmons fits that bill. This is a guy that can fit in multiple positions. He's worth taking at that 4th pick, and then you're going to hope that you can have a good offensive tackle that you've reviewed and rated properly fall into the 2nd or 3rd round for you to pick up. So I'm taking Isaiah Simmons, Clemson, number 4. Next pick, Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins really, for lack of better term, screwed this up. They were supposed to be tanking for Tua, tanking for the quarterback, tanking for the guy that's going to officially take this franchise over and finally move them in the right direction. No more Ryan Fitzpatrick's, no more Josh Rosen's, no more Ryan Tannehill's, even though he got paid in Tennessee, just wasn't the right fit. We're going to find the right guy, and we are going to put a team around him. Well, if you look at their additions, they've added some talent. Jordan Howard, underrated running back. Eric Flowers, underrated offensive tackle. The big ones, Shaq Lawson, huge defensive upgrade. Emmanuel Ogbah, huge defensive upgrade. And probably the biggest upgrade of them all, Byron Jones, the number 1 corner that was in this free agency class. A lot of their needs were attacked during free agency, which allows them to draft for the other fill-ins. Well, let's look at their number 1 need, quarterback. And what was the first cliche that I said? Tanking for Tua? Well, the Bengals went with Joe Burrow. And the other teams went for talent. So the Dolphins pick is in. And they still get their guy. Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback out of Alabama. Now, Tua is coming off of a crazy injury. He is up, he's throwing, he's moving, he's mobile. But he's still on the board. And he's still very talented. The most accurate passer that we saw these last 2 years in college football. He's a winner. And again, SEC school, playing tough talent, NFL talent, and he's still on the board. This is a no-brainer for the Dolphins. There's rumors that the Dolphins are trying to trade up to that number 1 pick because maybe they want Joe Burrow, but Tua's been your guy all year. Stick with it and pick him. The injury is very scary, but I promise you, if he can be healthy, his talent level is a lot higher than Joe Burrow's. So Tua to the Dolphins. Coming in with the next pick, the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, the Chargers are in a different boat than everyone else. The Chargers are probably the best team that are up here in this top 10. They're a team that should have been playoff bound. Injuries killed them. But they're moving on from their franchise quarterback. Phillip Rivers goes on to the Colts. Melvin Gordon, their franchise running back, goes on to the Broncos. And if you look over to their additions, interesting that 2 of their biggest additions are on the offensive line. Getting Brian Bulaga, getting Trey Turner, bringing in Linval Joseph and Chris Harris from the Broncos. Huge bolster for that defense that is already stacked. If you look at their needs, everything's offense except for another corner, but you can get those 3rd, 4th corner guys in the 4th and 5th round. So let's spend these first rounds filling our needs. So the Chargers pick is in, and they're going with Justin Herbert, quarterback, Oregon. Now, they've already announced Tyrod Taylor's their guy, but there's inside sources saying that they're going to roll with Tyrod. However, they're planning to draft a quarterback, getting someone in that can either learn the system or pressure Tyrod to either perform or allow that quarterback to then start. Justin Herbert's probably the next best option. There's a lot of rumors out there for Jordan Love here, Tua falling here, but I don't see the Dolphins passing on Tua. Justin Herbert is the next best thing. He's a good quarterback. He's got good size. He's got some decision-making issues, but again, that can come with a system. So Justin Herbert here with the Chargers. They have their new franchise guy, maybe Phillip Rivers 2.0, without the whining, hopefully, and the Chargers will turn their season around. With the next pick, Carolina Panthers come in. Panthers, another organization that has a ton of turnaround. If you look at their losses, I actually had to change the font on their losses because they've had so many. And a lot of them key contributors. Trey Turner, obviously, we just mentioned, going to the Chargers. Greg Olsen, more of a vet tight end, but a big voice in that locker room that they've lost. And the biggest one of all, Cam Newton. The Carolina Panthers brought in Teddy Bridgewater. They think Teddy Bridgewater is their guy going forward, which definitely put that warning sign on Cam Newton's back. And then they tried to pull the curtain over our eyes and let Cam Newton seek a trade, even though Cam Newton wasn't even asking for one. Cam Newton kind of put him on blast. Well, Cam Newton's being released. So they have their quarterback. They're moving forward. But the Panthers have lost a ton on defense. A ton on defense. Luke Kuechly retired. Dontari Poe goes on to the Cowboys. Mario Addison goes to the Bills. Bruce Irvin back to the Seahawks. Bradbury to the Giants. Ross Cockrell gone. Eric Reed cut. This defense needs a revamp. Well, the nice thing about Matt Rule and his staff is they're going to want to start at the line position, moving it from the front to the back. They need a defensive tackle. They need a nose tackle. But they could also use help at the linebacker and cornerback position. Offense is going to come last. We're going to see the Panthers drafting offense third, fourth round unless talent really exceeds needs. Well, the Panthers pick is in, and they're taking Derek Brown, defensive tackle, Auburn. Derek Brown is probably the biggest physical specimen in this draft class. He knows how to use his body. He's flexible. He's quick with his feet. He reminds me a lot of Gerald McCoy, who, by the way, was a guy that was on the Panthers. Someone that can either play right over the center, in between the guard and the tackle, really push that front line, hold his own, basically become a defensive blocker to not allow the running back to really break through the hole and bust off anything, really trying to keep him from going to that second line of that defense. Derek Brown is a stud. And the Panthers are getting their number one need and the best position at that need, even though they're so far down in this draft class. Now, next pick, Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals got a gift from Mr. Bill O'Brien with the Texans getting DeAndre Hopkins in the building. Now they lose David Johnson, which David Johnson was a tough one to read. His injuries really took his career away. It was kind of like a Derrick Rose situation. They do have Kenyon Drake, who they brought in from the Dolphins last year, who they decided to keep. They signed him with a tender, second round, I believe, and he is going to be their focal point on the offense. Now, they drafted Kyler Murray last year. They have two stud wide receivers. They got a good running back. They got a decent offensive line, but they really need to bolster that line. You got a guy in Kyler Murray who is not the ideal size of a quarterback, so they need to protect him. So the Cardinals are taking Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle, Georgia. Now, the first lineman to come off the board, which is not surprising with how much athletic talent we have in this draft, but there's a lot of need for tackles. So the Cardinals are getting another gift. Not just are they getting DeAndre Hopkins in that trade, but they're going to get a tackle who's probably top 5 talent in this draft. And they're getting him here with their first round pick. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another team that really started to win our hearts over a couple years ago. Kind of died down, and last year that we thought it was back. Gardner Minshew coming in. They brought in Nick Foles last year, and he got injured first game. Now bringing in Minshew and really backing Minshew up. That is more or less the direction they want to go. Now, quarterback is still on their needs board. It's not high, but it's still on there. They seriously need to reconstruct that defense. That defense is one that lost a lot, especially a veteran voice. The veteran voice being Calais Campbell. Now, is it a huge loss talent-wise? Not necessarily. He's going to go on to he's going to go on to win probably 10 games with the Ravens, but the Jaguars really need to fill that void. But This is going to be the first team where we really see them struggle need versus talent. There's a lot of talent still on this board. There's quarterbacks, there's wide receivers, there's safeties, corners. I mean, you have Xavier McKinney still on the board in the safety department. You have all the receivers, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs still available. You still have Jordan Love, Jacob Eason available in the quarterback department. So who do the Jaguars take? Well, the Jaguars pick is in. And the Jaguars are taking C.J. Henderson, cornerback, Florida. So we talk about the defense really trying to rebuild this thing. They also lost A.J. Bouye, which losing Jalen Ramsey last year, A.J. Bouye this year, it's going to be a tough one to fill. And C.J. Henderson is one of the best corners in this draft. Now, we're obviously at the top end of this draft, so a lot of these guys are clearly the best talent, but C.J. Henderson's probably the best corner that's going to be drafted in the last couple years. Now, it's how they use him in this defensive scheme is going to be key. I would say if it were me, I would probably go. Honestly, I think C.J. Henderson not only the best available, but another top 5 talent guy. I think this would still be someone that I go with. If I was the GM, I would pull the trigger on C.J. Henderson. If I was the Cardinals, I would have pulled this trigger on C.J. Henderson, even though I know I need a tackle. Moving on to the next team, we have the Cleveland Browns. Now, Browns fans, I am so sorry you're here again. Watching your team pull off a crazy season last year, adding talent this year, thinking that, hey, we're going to go to the playoffs. We're the favorites in the AFC North. That died off real quick. Real quick. So, being that they are the Browns, you can see that losses, additions, they're kind of equal. However, talent-wise on the loss section doesn't necessarily outweigh the additions. We're talking about the Browns again, and I know it's extremely cliche to say, hey, they're adding more talent, but they are. Adding Jack Conklin, top 5 tackle in the league. Andrew Billings, top 20 defensive tackle in the league. Austin Hooper, top 5 tight end in the league. Carl Joseph, underrated safety. Really sad to see him go as a Raider fan. Hard-hitting safety, a first-round guy. But the talent that they lost is going to hurt, but what they've added, even though it's not a direct correlation with what they've lost, it's still talent that they're adding, and they're still moving in the right direction. So this is their time to move, make a draft, make the right moves so they can finally jump over that hump. So what do they need? They need offensive tackle. They need safety. They need linebacker. Offensive tackle's on there twice because that's how bad they need it. Well, the Browns pick is in. Do they follow suit? They do. Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Iowa. Second best tackle in this draft. Very close as far as technique talent to Andrew from Georgia, but definitely not as mobile. They have Jack Conklin on the other side. Conklin and Wirfs on the outsides is really going to give Baker Mayfield some time to throw. And in a NFC North defensive scheming division, you're going to need all the time you can get. And this is definitely going to help. So the Brownies are taking Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle. Great pick. Next team, New York Jets. They almost had it. Started off slow, picked it back up. Adam Gase might have the recipe. Who knows? They also lost their quarterback for a few weeks due to mono. The Jets are moving in the right direction. They added not top-tier talent, but they added pieces that fit. And everything they lost wasn't a killer. You could say that Robbie Anderson would hurt them, but Brashard Perriman is not far behind talent-wise. But the Jets need offensive line help. They need defensive line help. And they could definitely fill that Robbie Anderson void. So the Jets pick is in. And who do they take? The number 1 wide receiver in the class, Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama. Now, Jerry Jeudy might not be the most talented in this draft class, but he's the most NFL ready. This is a smart move by the Jets, getting someone that can run the right routes, catch the ball. They're going to have to work on some of their technique and how they transition to the NFL, but you're giving Sam Darnold a great addition. You're going to have Perriman on one side, Jeudy on the other. This is going to be a replica of the Falcons, having Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. This is going to be a dangerous offense if they can get Jerry Jeudy where he should be. Great pickup. First receiver finally off the board. Next team, the Raiders. Now, this one was really hard to do because I really didn't want to come off as a homer, but the Raiders are making moves. They're making smart moves. They're not making moves that are splashy. Last year they did that. They made the splash signing with Antonio Brown. How'd that work out? It didn't. So they're making the smart moves. Eli Apple's obviously on here, but he is no longer getting a contract. Instead, they're actually bringing in Demarius Randall from the Browns. But they're filling all their needs. Linebacker was number 1 need for the Raiders. They signed 2 in free agency, and not just signed 2 linebackers that can fill voids, starting linebackers. Stars. Littleton was a stud for the Rams. They bring in role players like Carl Nassib, bring in guys like Eric Kush, Jeff Heath, Malik Collins. Their defense is well-rounded. Now, offensive side of the ball. You have a ton of controversy around Derek Carr. Last year, there was rumors that you're going to trade up to get Kyler Murray. This year, there was rumors that you're going to go after Tom Brady. What do the Raiders do? Where do they go from here? Well, I can promise you this. John Gruden is back in Derek Carr. He's not getting a quarterback. So they're going to take the next best receiver, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Oklahoma. Now, CeeDee Lamb has the highest ceiling. He might not be the most NFL ready, but he has the highest ceiling. And that's what John Gruden wants. And he comes from a winning organization, which Mike Mayock loves. You saw him take 4 guys from Clemson last year. Well, he's going after Oklahoma this year. And CeeDee Lamb is going to give a well-rounded receiver threat to an offense that desperately needs it. You filled your void in running back last year. Derek Carr, you're going to stick behind him this year. Let's get him some weapons. Darren Waller is top 3 tight end in the league. You have Tyrell Williams, who it was a new system. Who knows? Hunter Renfrow came onto the scene late. CeeDee Lamb is a great addition here. Next up, the 49ers. Boy, did they get a gift with this one. Now, they did have to part ways with DeForest Buckner. That one's going to hurt for sure. But getting this pick from the Colts for Buckner gives them some versatility, gives them a way to add young talent to really bolster this roster that just went to a Super Bowl. A team that, yeah, they didn't win it, but they made it. Making the Super Bowl is not that easy. And sorry, 49er fans, but they had the game in the bag. They just need extra pieces. Or maybe a new coach, because Shanahan can't do it. I'm sorry. Moving on. Anyways, we won't bash Shanahan on this thing. But you can see, look at their additions and their losses. They're not adding anyone because they have the team that they want. They just need to add these little pieces through the draft, bring in some young talent, really try to grow that product. Losing Emmanuel Sanders hurt, but again, the Niners were good without Sanders last year. They brought Sanders in late in the year. Trade deadline. You lose a guy like DeForest Buckner, but you get this pick in return. You're really not losing much. So having said that, the Niners pick is in. And the 49ers are going with Henry Ruggs, wide receiver, Alabama. Henry Ruggs is a top-off wide receiver. This one was the tough one for me because I really thought that the Raiders of old would have went with Henry Ruggs. I think with Gruden now, he's more of a technician kind of guy. But Henry Ruggs will take the top off of any defense. And he can run. Tyreek Hill-like, maybe not as fast, but similar route running, similar speed. Henry Ruggs is a good addition, fills that void of Emmanuel Sanders very quickly. gives another weapon to Jimmy Garoppolo. That defense is already stacked. It's a good addition. Not the number one need. So if you're looking at the Niners' needs, corner was the number one need. But talent is outweighing the need at this point. C.J. Henderson would be the guy that they'd go after, but unfortunately he's gone, and Ruggs fell into their lap. It's a great pickup, and that makes that 49ers offense even harder to defend. Next, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Boy, what a offseason these guys have had. They've added Tom Brady. Don't know if you've heard of him. They added Kevin Minter, good linebacker. They brought back Shaquille Barrett. This team is ready to make a run. They pass on Jameis Winston. Fine. Yes, he threw for 5,000 yards. He also threw 30 interceptions. They moved on from Peyton Barber, Rashad Perriman, Carl Nassib. Now, Blaine Gabbert's on here, but he's actually rumored to be coming back as a backup role to Brady. So what are their needs? Well, they just got Tom Brady. They need to protect him. They're putting a lot of money into this guy. But they could also use a running back. Running back has been a need for the Bucs for a long time. But they could also use a weapon for Brady. They lost Perriman. Yes, they have Mike Evans and Godwin, so it's not a top-tier need. But what if Henry Ruggs fell here? Would they take Henry Ruggs? 100%. But the Buccaneers pick is in, and they are taking Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle, Louisville. Perfect pickup. You're getting the protection for Brady. And look, Brady's going to make every offensive line look better than what they are. He has an internal clock. He knows when he's about to be sacked. It's the Peyton Manning 2.0 effect. You do not have to be on top of your game when you're in Brady's offense, but adding a body like Becton and someone that can block and who's young and can move, it's big. It's a good addition for the Buccaneers, and watch out for the Buccaneers. The NFC South is going to be insane next year. Insane. And next up, we have the Denver Broncos. A lot of 7-9 teams here. So the NFL had a lot of schedule readjustments that they had to look at with who beat who and tiebreakers. But you got the Broncos coming in here, and they need a lot. They've lost a lot, and everything they've lost is a big part of their defense. They lost Derek Wolfe, Chris Harris, Cyrus Jones, Will Parks. Now, they did add A.J. Bouye, which could be a direct swap for Chris Harris. Melvin Gordon's gone, but they have Phillip Lindsay. Melvin Gordon's in, but they have Phillip Lindsay. So Melvin Gordon might be playing kind of a role player, third down kind of back. We don't know. We don't know how this is going to play out. From the sounds of it, it's Lindsay's offense and Gordon's coming in to help. But they're moving on from Joe Flacco. Where they go quarterback-wise, it's not going to be the answer. John Elway does not know how to fix this. But what he does need to do is he needs to build his offense and prepare it for the quarterback. Or do they go quarterback? Well, their pick is in, and they're going T. Higgins, wide receiver, Clemson. T. Higgins is the best physical specimen out of this draft in the wide receiver class. Tall, lanky, can jump, has great hands, high points the ball fantastically. Coming from a school like Clemson, you know that he can play. This fills their number one need, even though I believe their need is quarterback, but whatever. It fills John Elway's number one need, and it gives them a weapon, and we'll see how they play. We'll see how they use them. I don't think T. Higgins is going to get immediate playing time, but with the loss of Emmanuel Sanders, this could be a guy that starts right off the bat, gets a lot of targets, and could be a guy that takes over the scene. T. Higgins could finish this season as the best wide receiver, just because the team needs him that bad. Next, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Not a lot of additions. They had a huge splash with Todd Gurley, with the Rams moving on from him. They did lose Devontae Freeman, so that Gurley's kind of an upgrade to Freeman. Austin Hooper's probably the biggest gut-wrenching move here for the Falcons. Matt Ryan needs all the weapons he can get, and losing Hooper is tough. Now, they did bring on Hayden Hurst from the Ravens, but that's not a direct swap. Now, as far as Desmond Trufant, losing him could be something that long-term can really hurt him. So how do they fix that? They fix that by going for DB right off the bat. Well, their pick is in. And they're not going DB. They're going defensive end. Still the defensive side of the ball, but this is one of those where talent outweighs the need. And A.J. Epinesa is a great defensive end out of Iowa. Good technique guy, powerful defensive end, blows right through, doesn't try to get around you. He just goes right through you, puts his head in your chest, and pushes you backwards. And this defense needs that. Matt Ryan needs all the help that he can get, whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side. And AJ definitely answers that call. Now the Dallas Cowboys. An 8-8 squad that I feel like every time I look up, that blue star is going 8-8 again. The Dallas Cowboys made some moves that weren't necessarily the moves that you'd want to see. Right now, they're making signings that really they're not the signings that these Cowboy fans want. You have Dak Prescott that signed a franchise tag, but they want to work a long-term deal, yet they're spending money on Aldon Smith, who hasn't been in the league in 5 years. Spending $100 million on Amari Cooper, a guy that can't catch the ball when you need him to. You lose Randall Cobb, you lose Jason Witten, you lose Cameron Fleming, Travis Frederick retires, Robert Quinn bails, Malik Collins goes to the Raiders, Byron Jones to the Dolphins. Some big names, but Byron Jones is that one that really sticks out. The Cowboys need to fill that cornerback need. It's something that they've needed for a while. Byron Jones filled it, and then they lost it. Jerry Jones has his pick in, and he's not going corner. Kayvon Cason is another big-time defensive end. This is the one that I would agree with Jerry Jones to take the talent here over the need. Once C.J. Henderson's off the board, cornerback dips down to second-tier talent. Talent that you can get in the second and third round, and you're not going to see a huge spike. C.J. Anderson is that good compared to the rest of the cornerback class. Now, you can always draft some of the safeties and move them to corner. Safety is also a third need. A guy like Xavier McKinney still on the board. You can see him go here. But Kayvon Cason is a big-time talent that I don't see Jerry Jones moving past. Hey, these colors look familiar. The Dolphins are on the clock again. Now, the Dolphins, we talked earlier about them really screwing it up. They were supposed to tank. They traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to get the Steelers pick. They traded Laramie Tunsil to get the Texans pick. Their plan was to have the first pick in the draft and then 2 middle round picks to really round out whatever side of the ball they really wanted. Well, their first pick, they answered their quarterback question. They no longer need quarterback. They need a line. They need someone that can block for this said quarterback that they just drafted. But it's the Dolphins. They have another pick later in the round, so they don't necessarily need to attack it right now. Kenneth Murray is the best linebacker in this class. It's not necessarily a need, but this is one of those where talent outweighs the need. Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen are the best linebackers, really the only first-round talent linebackers in this draft class, and Kenneth Murray is the best of them. The Dolphins are going to answer their defensive needs by getting someone that can possibly be their play caller, someone that runs sideline to sideline great and comes from a school like Oklahoma where he's a top talent and he's really going to perform for them. This guy fell into their lap. Good pick with Kenneth Murray. Hey, these colors look familiar too. The Las Vegas Raiders are back. It feels great to say Las Vegas. This is their second pick in the first round. This pick came from the Chicago Bears. The Bears decided to trade everything for Khalil Mack, so the Raiders are reaping the benefit. And with this first-round pick, their number one need was wide receiver. Well, they answered that. Their next need is corner. Well, the one thing we know about John Gruden and Mike Mayock is they're drafting for need. Last year, they needed pass rush. First pick, Cleveland Farrell. They needed a running back. Their next first-round pick, Josh Jacobs. They needed over-the-top help on defense. Next pick, Jonathan Abram. John Gruden and Mike Mayock draft needs, no matter the talent. Well, in this case, talent fell into their lap. The Raiders select Xavier McKinney, safety corner out of Alabama. Now, McKinney is more of a safety. How the Raiders use him, who knows? The Raiders are known for moving positions. They bring in Jonathan Abram last year, who, if healthy, will be their starting safety. They lose Carl Joseph. They bring in Jeff Heath, who could be their guy. Maybe Xavier McKinney fills that void. They also have LaMarcus Joyner, who they brought in from the Rams as a safety, but we're using him as a nickel corner. Do they move Joyner back to free safety and move McKinney to corner? This gives them options. It's a need. They're filling it, and it's a great talent need as well. So Raiders picks are done for the first round. Obviously, with this mock draft, we're not doing trades. It's really hard to predict these trades, especially in this time where not every team is scouting everybody because they don't have the scouts out there looking at these people. Everything's going off of the tape. So I would say that you're not going to see as many trades. You might see a couple blockbuster moves, teams moving up for quarterback, but the biggest thing you're going to see is teams drafting top talent versus needs. Not very many trades happening. The Raiders will be done after this pick, but I think they're going to walk away very happy knowing that they got the top two talents in their positions, and those positions were needs. Hey, another team with colors look familiar. The Jacksonville Jaguars are back on the clock. This one they got from the Rams, the 9-7 Rams, who decided to trade their first-round pick for Jalen Ramsey, who didn't help them make the playoffs, but whatever. The Jaguars are, they filled their defensive nose tackle need. They need corner. They need safety. They need a quarterback if Minshew's not the guy. But I think right here the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to take a risk. Jordan Love is a guy that is highly talked about in this draft, a guy that some think are better than Joe Burrow. Now, he went to Utah State, so he's not playing the best talent. He did not have a great year last year. My personal opinion, I do not think Jordan Love is that good. But the way people are talking about Love, the way people are scouting him, I would not be surprised if the Jaguars bring in another guy to that quarterback room, bring in Jordan Love, create a competition with Minshew, and see if they can take it to that next level, get back to their 2016 form. Jordan Love to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hey, the Eagles are now on the clock. Now, the Eagles are a team that made some really good, smart moves. Bringing in a guy like Darius Slay, someone that has something to prove. You bring in Javon Hargrave, Rodney McLeod, Will Parks, Roby Coleman is a stud. Now, obviously, Josh McCown's not for sure gone, but you lose Josh McCown, you lose Jordan Howard, you lose Nelson Aguilar, which good riddance. I'm really ticked that the Raiders took him, but hey, you're losing a receiver that can't catch the ball. That's not really a big hurt on your part. Darby and Bradham are probably the biggest ones to lose right after Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins going to the Saints was a big hit for the Eagles, which could fuel their decision here for their pick. Their number one need is obviously receiver. They need weapons for Carson Wentz, but they also need defensive help. They need Carson Wentz to not be on the field all the time. And when teams are scoring against him, Carson Wentz is constantly on the field, and a guy that has injury history like that, that's not something you want. So the Eagles pick is in. They're taking Justin Jefferson, wide receiver LSU. This is a guy that's not really being talked about as much. There's even guys from Colorado. Laviska's being talked about more than Jefferson. This is a guy that just came off of a national championship, coming from a wide receiver room that was stacked at LSU. He's got the size. He's got the talent ability. This is a good pick. This is a good target for Carson Wentz. Not the best wide receiver off the board, but a need. Talent matches that need. They take Justin Jefferson. Now on to the Buffalo Bills. Boy, did the Bills surprise us. Now, Bills Mafia, you're probably going to say we knew it was coming, but this Bills team is built for success. They're hard-nosed, blue-collar. They do their job. It's kind of a Patriots feel. Do your job. Don't do anything extra. Now, Josh Allen might not be the guy, but he definitely helped them get to the playoffs. But they need to focus on the defensive side of the ball. Running back could be the route that they go, but drafting a running back last year, they might not need to really focus on that. Well, with their pick being Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end, Penn State. This fills the need. He's a great talent at that defensive end position. Great name, by the way. It's going to look awesome in those white jerseys. And coming from a white school, with their white on blue classic jerseys at Penn State, this answers the call. Yetur he's very similar to Epinesa. Puts his head in your chest, drives you back. It's a great addition to the defense. Now they can focus on corner later in the draft and maybe some targets for Josh Allen. The Patriots are now on the board. Now, the Patriots are a team that just lost Tom Brady, who their biggest losses, you could just put Brady there and leave that, because that's going to hurt. That's going to sting for a while. So Jarrett Stidham is their only quarterback that is projected to start. Now, there's still options out in free agency. Jameis Winston's available. Cam Newton's available. Andy Dalton might be available via trade. Heck, if Bill Belichick likes Mitchell Trubisky, I'm sure he can make a trade with the Bears to get Trubisky. Quarterback is by far their best need. Now, the rumor is Jordan Love is their favorite here. And not so much their favorite that they would trade up for him, but definitely a favorite. So quarterback was definitely a top-tier need, but with everyone kind of off the board, I think the Patriots go with Laviska Shenault Jr., the wide receiver out of Colorado. It answers their second need, gets some talent for Stidham if they go with Stidham. If they bring in Jameis Winston, brings a big body that he can pass to, same with Dalton. So a good wide receiver choice here, a safe pick, which is what we know the Patriots are good at, a good pickup, a good weapon for Bill Belichick's offense. Now, Saints. This is a team that is, I'm sorry, Saints fans, you're getting heartbroken every year. You lose at home to the Vikings. You have the Minnesota Miracle a couple years ago. You have the garbage call against the Rams last year. 2 years ago. This is a team that is fighting fate, it feels like. It really reminds me of the Red Sox curse. But they bring in a guy like Malcolm Jenkins. They bring in a guy like Emmanuel Sanders and DJ Swearinger, veterans that can help this locker room. But they need to get young. They need to bring in young talent. They have a 90-year-old quarterback in Drew Brees. They lose Teddy Bridgewater. But what side of the ball do the Saints go after? Well, their pick is in, and they're going with Patrick Queen, linebacker LSU. This is probably the coolest pick out of all of them because you're getting the hometown LSU kid going to New Orleans, and you're getting the second best linebacker who, again, by the way, Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen, not a huge difference as far as talent. They are definitely the top tier of the linebackers. So filling that need, getting a great talent, Patrick Queen falling all the way down to the Saints, a great pickup. Drew Brees will be happy to see this one come draft day. Speaking of the Minnesota Vikings, they need a lot. They lost Stephon Diggs, Laquan Treadwell, Everson Griffin, Mackenzie Alexander, Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes. They need help on the defensive side of the ball, and they also need wide receiver. Well, a lot of the wide receivers are gone. So Mike Zimmer and the boys are going to go with Christian Fulton, cornerback, LSU. This was one where Fulton you could have seen go a little higher to some other schools if they wanted to really just fill need over talent. But here at the bottom of the draft, the Vikings are getting a good corner, someone that fills a need. Maybe not a guy that's going to exactly replicate Xavier Rhodes, but he's going to definitely fill that Mackenzie Alexander void. And maybe they can add Eli Apple now that he's back available and try to really bolster up that DB room. But Christian Fulton, good pickup. Vikings add to their defense. Now, Here's them boys again, the Dolphins. Here's their Texans pick, the one that they got for their trade with Laramie Tunsil. Now, we've seen them go after Tua. We've seen them kind of change the game up and go a completely different direction than what they actually need. They need line help. So their pick is in, and they get it. Josh Jones, offensive tackle, University of Houston. This seems like the play here, going for your quarterback with your first pick, with your second pick, going for talent, unless the talent is tackle, and then your third pick going line. I could see if a guy like, the kid from Georgia, Andrew Thomas, is up there. If he's still there for the Dolphins, they take him. But I think Josh Jones, settling for him at the end of the round, is still a good pickup. You're going to get good production, and you have good protection for Tua for years to come. Next, we have the Seattle Seahawks. They're still tough. They've lost a lot, but a lot of their losses aren't for sure losses. Jadeveon Clowney still hasn't signed anywhere yet. Could be a guy that's coming back. A lot of their signings were veteran guys that are kind of just filling needs in quarterback rooms and wide receiver rooms and DB rooms. So where do they go? Well, they really need to fill that defensive end position. Whether they bring back Clowney or not, they need to fill that defensive end. So their pick is in. They're not going D-end. They're going smart. They're getting protection for Russell Wilson. Cesar Ruiz, offensive guard / center out of Michigan. Best interior lineman in the class. Unfortunately, their talent isn't going to outweigh the talent and need of the offensive tackle position, but a good pick here nonetheless. The Seahawks are going to get an interior lineman that can protect Russell Wilson and really try to get that offense running. Then they can focus in the later rounds on their defense. Next, we have the Baltimore Ravens, a team that hit the ground running fast. They took the world by storm. Unfortunately, their playoff run ended too soon, but you can see their additions definitely outweigh their losses. Marshall Yonda is a huge loss. But Derek Wolfe and Calais Campbell are huge additions. Seth Roberts, meh. Hayden Hurst, meh. Chris Wormley, meh. Patrick Onwuasu, meh. Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe are going to outweigh the loss of Yonda. Yes, Yonda lost a step. He's older, but that veteran voice on that line is something that they're going to need to fill. But Onwuasu leaving this year, last year losing C.J. Mosley, the Ravens also need linebacker help. And that's probably a direction that Harbaugh would go, which he does. Zach Bond, linebacker, Wisconsin. Now, this would be an ideal selection for Patrick Queen if Patrick Queen was here, but Zach Bond is the next best available. Probably a guy that could slip into the second round, but if the Ravens don't see, the Ravens are going to look at Ruiz, who just got picked, and that was going to be their guy that they circled. If he's available, that's who we want. Well, he's off the board. Zach Bond fills their top need, and the Ravens take a linebacker. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Green Bay Packers are a squad that they should be in the Super Bowl conversation every year when you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. They put talent around him. Devontae Adams is a great talent. They add a guy like Devin Funchess, who's a big body receiver, but that's not enough. They need to add more. They lose Jimmy Graham, which good riddance. He's not right for that offense. It wasn't a good pickup when they signed him. So the Packers need a weapon. All the wide receivers are gone. You can get the same wide receiver that you would draft here, you can get in the second round. But what's another weapon you can fill for Mr. Aaron Rodgers? Tight end. Cole Kmet, Notre Dame. Best tight end in the draft class by far. Big school. A good decision here to try to build something around Aaron Rodgers for his final 5 years. If that. So good pickup here. Smart move. Not the flashiest move, but smart move. Now we go to the Tennessee Titans. Now, a lot of people are probably looking up at those records and wondering why the Titans are 9-7 and they're drafting this late and they didn't trade for the pick. Well, it's because once you make the playoffs, how far you go will determine how late you are in the draft. Well, the Titans surprised everyone by being a wild card team and carrying themselves deep into the playoffs on the backs of Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, which, by the way, they have brought back. They've also brought in guys like Vic Beasley and Dennis Kelly. Now they've lost a lot. Marcus Mariota, their backup quarterback, is now with the Raiders as a backup. Deion Lewis goes to the Giants. Delaney Walker's gone. They're not bringing him back. Jack Conklin's probably the biggest hit. Cameron Wake is a big one as well. Logan Ryan, another big hit on the defensive side. So what do they need? Well, they have their running back situation covered. They have their receiver situation covered and their quarterback situation covered. Offensive line is good. Losing Conklin hurts. Do they fill that need? Do they go defense? Well, their pick is in, and they're filling the Conklin need. Austin Jackson, offensive tackle, USC. Probably a guy that will slip into the second round, but we're looking at talent versus need. Defensive end talent is shot. It's gone. When Epinesa, Yeater, all those guys come off the board, you don't have a defensive end that you can't get similar talent production out of the second and third rounds. Nose tackle, same thing, which leaves you offensive tackle. And Austin Jackson's the best available. They could have gone corner here. Look for corner to be here if Christian falls or if something happens with CJ that he falls this far, but Austin Jackson's a good pickup here. Smart move again for the Titans, bolstering that offensive line for Derrick Henry to run behind and run as fast and as hard as he can. Now the Super Bowl runner-ups are on the clock again. This is their actual pick from last year. The previous pick was their trade with the Colts. Again, not a ton of additions. Not crazy on the losses either. With the Niners' last pick of their first round, they're going to take Trayvon Diggs, cornerback, Alabama. Now, we saw them take Henry Ruggs with their earlier pick. Talent outweighed need. Well, in this case, all their needs, talent-wise, they can get same production in the second and third round. Trayvon Diggs is more of a risk, but with his family history being related to Stephon Diggs, this could be someone that hits the scene running, and having a guy like Richard Sherman mentor him could benefit in the long run. Now, the final pick of the draft, your Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Lots of losses, which is very normal for teams that win the Super Bowl. Guys that are kind of fringe players get massive contracts elsewhere. Guys that are veterans get cut because, hey, we didn't need you. We won the Super Bowl without you. Especially guys like LaShawn McCoy, who got benched for the Super Bowl. Morris Claiborne, big loss. Kendall Fuller, big loss. Emmanuel Ogbah, big loss. How are they going to fill these voids? Well, they need corner. They need offensive guard. They need running back. They need linebacker. Do they start filling their defensive needs, or do they get Patrick Mahomes another weapon? Well, if you guys know Andy Reid by now, you know weapons on the offensive side of the ball is what he wants. And DeAndre Swift is the best running back in this class. He is going to be a monster in Andy Reid's offense. This is a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, put his head down and run behind the tackles, and he can bust it up the gut behind the center as well. DeAndre Swift is going to be a great addition to that offense, and Patrick Mahomes is going to have a guy that he can finally rely on in the backfield. So a good pickup. That's our first live episode, everybody. I appreciate everyone coming in. I really appreciate the support. Again, I know this is a tough time. I love you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I hope everyone stays safe, and I hope everyone follows the rules. Don't be out there, within 6 feet of each other. Stay home. Stay with the fam. I know it's tough, but we'll get through this. Sports will be back, and we will be better than ever. I can promise you that. So, as we end every show,